Now, more than ever, when the world is battling the COVID-19 pandemic, there is a need to ensure the rights to privacy and data protection.
COVID-19 response activities reflect the need to protect data, as many organizations are actively involved in gathering and disseminating information to help contain the virus, and along with this, engaging activities involving the collection and processing of personal data like names, health data status, amongst others.
Now, as a result, data protection regulators across the world are emphasizing that data protection during these times to safeguard the rights of individuals, ensure safe conduct of transactions involving the exchange of personal data, and to prevent unauthorized and criminal use of personal data. All right, joining us now on Skype is Managing Consultant, Johan Consult Nigeria, Akin Oyegoke. Akin, good morning. It's good to have you join us now.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Great. Now, let's talk about this, this topic that a lot of people are very involved in it, but don't understand the technicalities around it. Now, data protection, talk to us. Why is it necessary to protect data?
It's necessary to protect data because data is, as they say, the new oil, and data is what identifies what you call data subjects, you and I, individuals. Now, if that data gets into the wrong hands, a lot can be done with it. A lot of individuals have been destroyed because their data has been fraudulently used. Because it's been getting into the wrong hands. And so that is why there's a need for data to be protected.
And from your assessment of how data is being handled or managed in Nigeria, what would you say? Would you say Nigeria is on track at ensuring data protection, and also that Nigerians are appreciating such?
Yes, I would say Nigeria is on track. Nigeria came up with a data protection regulation. The regulators are NIDA, the National Information Technology Development Agency, and they came up with this regulation, which is similar to the EU General Data Protection Regulation. And organizations have to be compliant with these regulations. They've even instructed federal government organizations, ministries, and MDAs to comply. And there's also sanctions for data breaches and for non-compliance. So the regulators are doing a good job. They have what you call DPCOs, Data Protection Compliance Organizations, who are licensed by the regulators, and they are engaged by organizations to help them become compliant, and we are one of such organizations in Nigeria.
All right, now Akin, talk to us about the issue, data in the wrong hands. What are the threats and risks of data being in the wrong hand? Walk us through that aspect of we need to protect this from and all of that. If it is in the wrong hands, what happens and how is it used, and what are the threats really?
I mean, one of the things that could happen if data gets, for example, if your data or my data gets into the wrong hands, whoever has taken that data can now assume your identity. So you are now at risk because your data could be used for financial fraud. It could be used for anything. So once data gets into the wrong hands, they could even go into your bank accounts and take your money. They just assume your identity, and that is a really, really big risk.
So why is this conversation critical at this time, COVID-19, especially where we see that the world has been thrown deeper into the virtual space?
And that is the reason why it is critical at this time, because now you have a lot of people working from home. You hear everywhere about a digital economy. Everybody now is working online. So there's a lot of data being transferred online. And so that data has to be protected, because as you're working online, so are the cyber criminals too, trying to hack in and get your information. And like we said, during this time of COVID-19, a lot of things are being done online. Business transactions, e-commerce, everything is online.
All right, now we see that most businesses are into remote work, talking about working from home. How much of a risk does this pose to businesses, and how can they mitigate these risks?
Yes, at this time, a lot of organizations, as you say, they're working from home. A lot of personal data is being exchanged online. And to mitigate these risks, it's better to go through, make sure your organization is compliant with the regulation. For example, in Nigeria, we have the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, which came about January last year, and it's to protect the rights of individuals. So for them to protect this data, they need to, organizations need to comply with that regulation and have the data protected as the regulation says.
All right, when it comes to this data protection we're talking about, how is data protected? If you have to walk us through what that is in the way that we can understand, how is data protected?
Okay, data is protected in many ways. The first thing is how you collect this data. So as a data protection compliance organization, we look at how you collect the data, and then how you transfer this data, and how you store this data, and how you delete data. So you have to look at all these things and then make sure that data is, like you said, protected in a way that only authorized people have access to it, and only the data subjects, those are the people that own the data, have given you consent to use that data. So it has a lot to do with how you're storing this data, how you're collecting this data. If you're sending out emails, how protected are these emails? What kind of information are you sending? Are they encrypted? So if you encrypt data so that even if it gets into the wrong hands, they won't be able to unencrypt it and see what information is in there. So there are many different ways of protecting data.
Now, there are concerns that other countries are ensuring or putting in place guidelines such that personal data collected through COVID-19 contact tracing are protected, and that perhaps Nigeria is not towing the same line. How do you respond to this?
I won't really agree with that, because Nigeria is. I said earlier that Nigeria, through the National Information Technology Development Agency, NIDA, have come up with our own regulation, which is similar to the EU GDPR. So we have the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation 2019, which is in force. And the agency, NIDA, is really trying to enforce this and doing a lot of awareness so that organizations are aware and become compliant. They have actually licensed about 60 DPCOs, data protection organizations, which help organizations to become compliant.
All right, now what category of companies or work or industry is at risk or higher risk or vulnerable to this data exposure that we're talking about?
Okay, when you, organizations like the financial institutions, because a lot of data is exchanged digitally, e-commerce, when you go online to do your shopping or you're buying anything online, you're using your credit card or your debit cards, and so that data that is being exchanged. And then, like I said, the financial institutions, insurance, because they hold vital information of individuals. So those are the organizations that, social media too is another one. that are at high risk.
So how responsive is Nigeria's regulation, which is also a concern to persons because they feel that Nigeria is still unable to enhance the power of data, particularly personal data, because they see that the laws are not comprehensive enough?
I think we're getting there. It's still early days for Nigeria, but we are getting there. Like I said, with the development of the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, a lot has been going on. NIDA has been working very, very hard to bring about awareness. And look, we see a lot of organizations are rushing to comply. There are sanctions for data breaches now, and there are also fines involved. For example, if you are not compliant or there is a data breach, you could be fined up to 2% of your annual turnover for the preceding year. So I think we're getting there. Like I said, it's still early days.
All right, we have to leave it here now. Akin Oyegoke, thank you so much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.